These are the 5 stages of Pilates studio growth. Welcome to Pilates Elephants. I'm Raphael Bender. I grew my Pilates studio from 0 to 2.4 million a year over a decade. And for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been mentoring Pilates studio owners. I've seen over 100 lots of financials for Pilates studios. I've seen these stages very consistently. And basically what I've found is that there are predictable things that break at each stage, and there are predictable constraints at each stage that you need to get through in order to unlock the next stage. So I'm going to talk you through all of those. All right. Stage 0, Wantrepreneur. This is where most people get stuck. Revenue 0, team 0. You're stuck thinking, researching, analyzing, planning, preparing. You haven't basically taken any action. Maybe you've got lots of Notion boards or Pinterest boards or mood boards or plans, business plans, but you actually haven't done anything. And the core problem at this level is you're waiting for the perfect plan instead of just creating momentum by taking action. And so what you need to do is stop planning and just do something. And the actual thing that you need to do is go listen to episode 273 of Pilates Elephants. That's the How to Make 100K a Year Teaching Pilates, and just follow the exact steps in that episode. Just do it. And that's basically going to be you doing warm outreach. So essentially messaging people you know and saying, hey, come and do Pilates with me. So go listen to that episode. There's more detail on what you need to do, but you need to stop thinking. You're way overthinking this, and you need to start generating some action. And when you have action and momentum, then the plan will make itself as you go. All right, so that's stage 0, the Wantrepreneur. And to unlock that stage, you need to actually just do something. You need to take action. All right, and when you take action, I'm not talking like one action. I'm talking take consistent action over multiple weeks or a couple of months. Then you get to stage 1, the Solopreneur. And this is where you have actual revenue, you have actual clients, and you're still just a solo person. You have no one working for you yet. You might be making in US dollar terms 1,000 up to about 10,000 a month. And you've got a team of 0. You're doing everything. You're teaching, you're selling, you're doing the admin, the cleaning. Maybe you have a business in your, at home. And your problems at this stage are that you have very poor boundaries. And so clients cancel at the last minute and they expect not to pay. They expect you to hold their spot for a month while they go away on vacation. You're probably undercharging, probably over-delivering. You probably are doing special services for different clients. You're afraid to enforce boundaries. Maybe you're seeing people at times that you don't want to see them, or you're seeing clients you just don't enjoy working with. You're seeing people, in the mornings and in the evenings, and you have a 5-hour break in between. And maybe also at this stage, you are doing multiple different things. Like maybe you do bar and reformer and mat, so that you can, quote, attract more clients to be a full service. And that just fractures your attention even more and makes you feel overwhelmed and like you're drowning. And so to graduate to the next level, what you need to do is probably raise your prices, consolidate down to just one service. So just reformer or just bar or just mat, and communicate boundaries to your clients, most importantly. Now, all of that comes along with consolidating and raising your prices. So you need to communicate your boundaries. So, for example, you might say, hey, I'm only doing one-on-ones on Fridays moving forward, or I'm not doing one-on-ones anymore. I'm only teaching groups. You might say, you might start enforcing your cancellation policy and have a couple of uncomfortable conversations. You might fire a couple of clients that you just don't enjoy working with, or have consistently broken your boundaries. The final thing you can do here is you need to outsource some of the most menial tasks that you're doing. So I'm talking cleaning, admin, bookkeeping, that type of thing. so that you can focus more on customer service, like as in giving great classes, and also retention and sales. All right, so that is stage one, the solopreneur. And when you do those things, you consolidate to a single service, you enforce boundaries, you put your prices up, and you learn to have those hard conversations with your clients, then guess what? Your revenue goes up, your stress goes down, you free up time, and you graduate to stage two, which I'm going to call the builder. And that is where you hit about $10,000 per month. And this stage goes up to roughly, 30 or 40,000 a month. And this is where you've got a team, you start hiring people, you can't teach all the classes, the demand increases, you've got a team of 1 to 7 or so people. You've hired a few instructors, they're nice people, but now you have people problems because when you hired, you weren't very intentional about your hiring and you just hired, quote, nice people. But it turns out that most of them, possibly all of them, are not aligned. When I say not aligned, I mean they don't want to work the hours that you need them to work, or they teach a completely different style of Pilates. Maybe you're a classical teacher and they teach contemporary, or vice versa. Maybe you teach strength-based reformer and they're interested in doing pelvic floor and breathing. So it's a non-aligned situation. And possibly they're just not that good. And how do I know they're not that good? And how do you know they're not that good? Because you're still the most popular instructor. And how do you know the most popular instructor? Just look at the class numbers. Your class numbers are higher. And then you're thinking, but Sally, she teaches Thursdays and Thursdays aren't a great day. So maybe it's just that. And then I ask you, well, do you teach on Thursdays? And you're like, yeah, I teach on Thursdays. And how are your Thursday classes? And I'm like, yeah, my Thursday classes are full. Okay. So Sally's not as good as you. So your instructors are lovely people, but they're misaligned, most of them in terms of expectations, values, and probably skill level as well. And when stuff breaks, when someone calls in sick or the plumbing breaks or a client has an emergency or the payment processor goes down, you have to fix it. You're the only one who does any fixing. The first thing anyone does when anything breaks is calls you. So, and at this stage, you're making money, which is great. So you've got this great business that's making money, but you're not tracking your numbers. You don't know how much profit you're making. You certainly wouldn't know what your capacity utilization is by instructor. You don't know your churn or your first visit to sign up conversions or any of that stuff. And although now you've had some clear, tough conversations with your clients and you probably are enforcing your wait lists and you have good boundaries with your clients, you're not doing that with your instructors. You're avoiding tough conversations around alignment. And as a consequence, you have a misaligned team. And almost certainly you have at least one person on your team who in your gut needs to go. All right. So the central, the core problem at this stage, the builder stage, where you're first starting to hire a team, is that you're scared to lead. And as a consequence, you have a low performance culture. And so what you need to do is get crystal clear on your values and your teaching method and enforce those. Roll those out to your team, enforce those, and hire, lead, coach, and when necessary, fire to those values and teaching method. You need to start tracking key metrics monthly. So your sign-ups to the studio, your conversions from from first visit to sign up, your capacity utilization by instructor and by class, and your churn. And you need to basically start acting like the leader you want to be. Set expectations, have straight up conversations, get rid of low performers and people who are not a values fit. And when you do those things, you'll graduate to stage 3, the entrepreneur. And that's what I call the entrepreneur. When your revenue's at roughly $30,000 to $60,000 a month, there's probably still a single location, although you may have opened a second location. At this level, you have a team of probably between 5 and 10, and you've figured out those things that I just mentioned. So you've got a great team who's aligned. You've got a strong brand at studio number 1. And like I said, you're thinking of opening studio number 2, or maybe you already have, but it's not going as smoothly as studio number 1. And the reason is that you build up this fantastic team at studio number 1 by mentoring people and getting people 1,000% bought into the vision and the mission. And you've got just these fanatical team members who would run through a brick wall for the company and for you. and fanatical clients who love your classes, but you haven't documented what it is that you do. You don't actually have processes for building a team. You've just kind of done it by instinct. And so now when you're thinking of opening a second studio, or maybe you have opened a second studio, you've been essentially coasting on your brand equity. What I mean by that is you're a great teacher. You're very personable. You really care about your clients. You've transformed people's lives, and you've trained up your instructors to do that as well. Although most of them are not quite as good as you, and I say that as a measure of as measured by class attendance. You've got clients who really, really love your classes, and maybe you started a few years back now. So if you're in the $30,000 to $60,000 a month range, you've probably been going 2-3 years at least. And back when you started, maybe 2021, 2022, something like that, there wasn't a lot of competition. And so you just opened up, put the word Pilates on your sign, and clients came in, and you did a great job, and they loved it, and they stayed, and they told their friends. But now the landscape's different. There are more competitors around. There are franchises coming in, undercutting you on price. And you're okay at Studio One because you've got a fanatically loyal client base, because they see and feel the difference. And maybe a few people went and tried those cheaper franchises, and they came back and said, you know what, that was shit. You're way better. So you're doing good at Studio One, but when you open Studio Two, you find it really hard to get people in the door because you haven't meaningfully differentiated yourself from your competition. And so you're scaling prematurely because essentially you haven't got a clearly differentiated position. You can't say in 10 words or less how you're different from your competitors in a way that is meaningful to your ideal client. Like you might say, we do Pilates that promotes X, Y, or Z, but the thing is probably X, Y, or Z is something that some or all of your competitors also say, and something that your clients actually don't care about or know what it means. So you're not clearly differentiated, and I know that because if you were, you wouldn't be struggling to get clients. And you also don't have documented processes to hire, train, lead a team. And so in order to graduate to the next level, you need to nail your positioning. So you need to be able to say in 10 short words or less, how are you meaningfully different from all of the other competitors in a way that's important to your ideal client? And you need to build a hiring and ramping system to clone yourself or your top instructor. So maybe at this point you probably still are the best instructor, although maybe at this point you have one or two like trusted instructors who you kind of coached up from a pup, who are as good or maybe even better than you. And if that's the case, amazing, you can clone one of those people. But you need to clone someone who's a top instructor in the studio. And in order to do that, you need to implement consistent QC or quality control. So essentially audit regularly, like weekly, auditing instructors' classes, giving them feedback, and coaching them on a weekly basis. And so once you do those things, you graduate to stage 4, which I call the CEO. This is where your revenue is in the US $50,000 to $100,000 per month range. You've got 2 to 3 studios. You've got a team of probably 10 to 20-ish people. And you've got multiple locations, and you're preparing to really scale. And you have systems, you have a studio manager, you have some delegation in place. You're no longer managing the instructors yourself. You're managing the managers who manage the instructors. But now you start to run into organizational problems. Communication is breaking down. People at Studio One are doing something in class that Studio 2 doesn't know is happening. There's a special on at Studio 2. Studio 3 doesn't know what's going on. The rostering gets mixed up. There are just communication problems between different locations, different departments, that the left hand starts to not know what the right hand's doing. And so there's duplication of effort, there's confusion, there's people working at cross purposes, and there's lots of inefficiencies people working on the wrong things. So essentially your scaling and complexity grows, and you need to develop systems to facilitates a clear communication and alignment of priorities between the team. And at this point, you probably do need to trim a little bit of fat off the team because probably people are doing things that are not crucial to the business. So you need to cut hours maybe for some roles who are, maybe Word was an important role when you're at one studio, but now is not relevant. Ensure everyone knows who owns what and what the reporting relationships are. And finally here, in order to scale as profitably and fast as possible, you need to decide on your growth model. So if you open your own studios and you own them 100%, that's great. You've got total control, but it's very expensive to open a studio and you need to recoup that cash outlay, the capital outlay, before you open the next one. Otherwise, you're going to run out of money. The more studios you open, the less money you'll have. So you need to either figure out a way to bootstrap it with a very low startup cost and quick way to recoup that cost. So open, like pre-launch marketing and so forth, so that you open already very close to or at cash positive. Or you need to take on partners or do a franchise model, which have their own challenges, it's not the place for me to go into those here. But you need to figure out a cash positive way to scale. And at this point, you probably need to hire or build a real marketing team as well, because maybe you're doing the marketing or maybe you've got somebody who does some meta ads for you or whatever, but it's kind of like one part-time person doing it. And at this point, you probably really need like a professional to do your ads and probably a couple of professionals. You need someone on Google, someone on Meta, someone on organic. So, you posting on Instagram just won't cut it anymore at this point. And then you've just in terms of the communication, what you need there is leadership rhythm. So like weekly one-on-ones, weekly leadership meetings, weekly team meetings, dashboards that everybody in the company can see. You need accountability metrics, all of that stuff. And once you nail most of that, you get to scale your business profitably. The next level, I don't know what the next level is in Pilates studios. I'm sure there is a next level, because if I look at, say, Club Pilates, they're at 700 franchises. They must be doing in the hundreds of millions per year. Or if probably in the head office, they're probably doing definitely in the tens of millions per year, possibly over 100 million. So there definitely is another stage beyond my stage 4 here, but I haven't been there yet. My company's currently doing about 300 or 250,000 US per month. And I think we're basically still at stage 4. So maybe for my particular business, education, that goes up beyond 100K a month. But we're in that same headcount. We're at like 18 headcount, I think, at the moment. So those are the 5 stages. Stage 0, the Wantrepreneur, you need to just do something. And what you should do is listen to episode 273 and actually implement the things that I say in that episode. Stage 1, the Solopreneur, where you've got 1 to 10,000 US a month revenue. And you need to raise your prices, consolidate down to a single offering, communicate boundaries to your clients, and outsource basics like admin and cleaning. Stage 2, the Builder, you're doing like roughly 10 to 30 or 40K a month. You've got a small team of 1 to 6 or 7 or 8. You've hired a few instructors, but they're probably not aligned. They're almost certainly not anywhere near as good as you. When anything breaks, it falls on you, and you need to get crystal clear on your values and your teaching method. You need to start tracking metrics monthly, and you need to start putting on your big girl pants or your big boy pants and acting like the leader that you want to be, and set expectations, have straight up conversations, get rid of low performers and people who are not a values fit. When you do that, you graduate to stage 3, the Entrepreneur, where your revenue is somewhere in the 30 to 60K a month range. You've got a team of roughly 5 to 10. It's a great team. They're all aligned. They're all good. They're all teaching great classes. You're maybe thinking of or have just opened Studio 2, but it's not going as well because you didn't have good positioning. You just had brand equity, and you also didn't have processes. You just had you riding a bike really well, but you couldn't draw a checklist of how to ride that bike that somebody else can follow and ride the bike as well as you. So you need to do those 2 things to scale. You need to clearly differentiate yourself and articulate your positioning in a way that is meaningful for your ideal client avatar and that they can easily understand. And you need to develop processes around hiring, training, leading your team of instructors. And part of that is implementing QC. And then finally, stage 4, the CEO, where your revenue is roughly in the 50 to 100K a month. You've got 2 or 3 studios, team of 10 to 20 roughly. You've got systems, you've got a studio manager, you've got excellent instructors, you've got QC. You're no longer managing the instructors. You've got someone else who does that for you. Now you're managing the managers, and you're starting to run into your limitations there where you are finding that, one manager doesn't know what the other manager's doing, or the managers are working at cross purposes, or somebody's waiting on somebody else to do something, but they're dragging their heels on it. There's confusion, there's misalignment, there's inefficiency. And the core problem is that you don't have systems in place for communication. And so you need to put those in place. You need to probably trim some of the fat in the organization. You've probably got too many levels of middle management, too many managers of this, that, and the other. And then you also need to find a profitable growth model, whether that's bootstrapping it with a low capital cost of opening each studio and a quick road to profitability by pre-selling memberships before you open, or whether that's franchising or a partnership model. And you're probably going to need a real, grown-up marketing team at this point, because just you posting on Instagram is not the thing anymore. All right. So I hope you found that useful, dear listener. That is a true record of what I know about scaling Pilates studios, from scaling my own studio up to stage 4 there, and from also helping, I would say, 15 or 20 studio owners also scale to stage 4, and hundreds. I have hundreds of clients at various stages of each of these stages, and I've seen the financials of over 100 of those businesses. So I believe this is a pretty accurate record, a pretty accurate roadmap of how to scale your Pilates business. All right, much love, and I will see you in the next one.